Hey, what's up, my people? Lisgraphix here, and today I'll be showing you how to design a clean and modern social media post in Photoshop, step by step. All the images and files I use in this project will be available in the description below, so feel free to download them and follow along. First, I create a new document by going to File, New. I set the width to 22 inches, height to 27 inches, and resolution to 300 pixels per inch. This gives me a high-quality canvas, great for both print and digital content. Make sure your units are set to inches and color mode is RGB. Once done, I hit Create. Before we begin designing, I like to set up a grid. This helps keep everything aligned. To do this, I go to View New Guide Layout and enter the exact grid values I used. You can copy them directly from the screen. Trust me, these guides will help keep your design clean and balanced. Next, I bring in my background image from my computer. Instead of dragging it in, I use the proper method by going to File, Place Embedded. This keeps the image linked and editable without rasterizing it by default. Once placed, I scale it proportionally and position it nicely to fill the entire canvas. Using Place Embedded also helps avoid resolution loss later in case you need to resize. Then I draw a white rectangle at the bottom. This is where we'll provide important details like the brand's WhatsApp number. Now let's add the branding. This is one of the most important parts of the flyer. I select the text tool and click at the top of the design. Here, I type in the brand name, Ziggy Leathercraft. This is the main identity of the design, so it needs to stand out. For the font, I go with something bold, clean, and modern, like Montserrat Bold or Poppins Extra Bold. You want your brand name to be immediately readable, even at a glance. That's what makes it effective on platforms like Instagram or WhatsApp. Just below the brand name, I add the subtitle, Your Trusted Partner for Quality Boat Footwear. This line adds credibility and quickly tells your audience what the business is about. For the subtitle, I switch to a lighter font weight, like regular or medium, to create contrast and a clear visual hierarchy. Next, I create another rectangle, but this time, I want it to act more like a frame or border instead of a solid shape. So here's what I do. I grab the rectangle tool, and in the top properties bar, I make sure to remove the fill completely by setting it to None. Then I give the rectangle a stroke of 7 pixels, and I enable rounded corners to keep the look soft, modern, and consistent with the rest of the design. Now, I draw this outlined rectangle just below the brand name and subtitle area. This shape is going to visually contain the services section. It acts like a box or boundary that guides the viewer's eye to that content. Using outlined shapes like this is a great way to separate information without making your design feel too heavy or cluttered. It gives structure to the layout while keeping things open and breathable. I also make sure the corners are rounded enough to match the style of the design. Usually a radius between 25 to 40 pixels works well depending on the size of your rectangle. So if you're designing something like this for a brand, think about how shapes and strokes can help guide your layout, organize the content, and still keep things looking stylish and professional. Now that I have my outlined rectangle in place, it's time to fill it with content, and this is where we'll showcase the services the brand offers. I select the text tool and click near the top inside the rectangle. Here, I type the word Services. This acts like a section header, just like a headline in a flyer, so I make sure it's styled clearly. I use a slightly larger font than the service items below, and I keep the font bold and easy to read. Once that's in place, I begin listing all the services. I switch to a regular or medium font weight and reduce the font size just a little so the focus stays on the section title. I type each service line by line, spacing them evenly underneath the services heading. This makes the section organized and easy to read for the audience. Now to give it a nice visual structure, I add small rectangles beside each service to serve as custom bullet points. You could also use icons or circles, but I personally like rectangles for this design because it matches the boxy, structured look we're building throughout the flyer. To do that, I grab the rectangle tool, set a small size, maybe about 10 by 10 pixels, or slightly rectangular like 10 by 5, and duplicate it next to each service line. These small shapes act as bullets and make the list feel more complete and well-designed. Once I place one rectangle, I hold Alt plus drag to duplicate it for the next line. I do this for every service in the list, keeping each bullet perfectly aligned using the grid we created earlier. This little detail might seem small, but it goes a long way. Bullet points help break the text into digestible chunks, improve readability, and give a clean, professional look to your layout, especially important for service-based businesses. Once that's done, I go ahead and add another subtitle just below the services section. This line adds a bit more context or a quick call to action, guiding the viewer and making the design feel more intentional and complete. Now I want to add a photo to the design, but instead of just placing it freely, I'm going to use a cool and clean method called a clipping mask. This lets me place an image inside any shape I create. First, I grab the rectangle tool and draw out a shape where I want the image to appear. It could be a square, a tall rectangle, or even something angled, depending on the design. Once the shape is in place, I go to File, Place Embedded, choose my image, and position it directly over the rectangle. It's important to make sure the image completely covers the shape underneath. Now here's the magic part. In the Layers panel, I right-click on the image layer and choose Create Clipping Mask. Photoshop automatically clips the image inside the shape right below it, so now the image fits perfectly within that frame. You can still move or resize the image inside the shape without changing the shape itself, which gives you full control and a super polished look. Clipping masks are a really powerful tool in Photoshop. They help keep your layout organized and your images looking intentional. This is especially useful in social media designs, flyers, and portfolios when you want photos to stay inside clean frames. Under the image I just clipped into the rectangle, I add another subtitle to reinforce the message and connect with the viewer emotionally. I type, "Experience comfort and style with our handcrafted leather footwear." A powerful line that speaks to both quality and lifestyle. I position this text just below the image, center-aligned, and use a clean, readable font in a medium weight. This adds warmth and personality to the design while helping viewers understand the value the brand offers. Next, I want to create a section on the right-hand side of the design that feels soft and inviting, something that stands out but doesn't overpower the rest of the content. So here's what I do. I grab the rectangle tool again, and I draw a tall, vertical shape that covers part of the right side of the layout. Now instead of using a solid color, I give this rectangle a very light fill, around 18% opacity. To do that, I simply lower the fill or opacity slider in the Layers panel until I get that subtle, see-through look. This adds softness and depth without drawing too much attention away from the main image and text. I also go ahead and round the corners of this rectangle to keep everything in line with the visual theme of the design: modern, soft, and clean. Rounded corners help the design feel more friendly and approachable, especially for a lifestyle or fashion brand like this one. This semi-transparent box will serve as a base for placing additional visuals later on, like a gallery of product shots or detailed features. Think of it as a stylish background panel that helps you highlight content without using harsh borders or full color blocks. So at this point, we're using shapes not just to hold content, but to guide the eye and create visual interest in a very intentional way. Now that I've drawn the soft, semi-transparent rectangle on the right-hand side of the layout, I'm going to use that space to showcase a set of visuals, almost like a mini product gallery. To start, I grab the rectangle tool again, and I draw a small rectangle near the top of the softbox. This shape is going to act as a photo holder, just like a frame. I give it rounded corners to stay consistent with the rest of the design. Once the first shape is in place, I use it as a template. I hold Alt and drag to duplicate it and place it just below the first. I do this 5 more times until I have 6 rectangles, neatly stacked in 2 columns of 3, or 1 column depending on your layout space. Make sure there's even spacing between each one, and if you're using guides or smart snapping, it makes alignment so much easier and more accurate. Now it's time to add the images. I go to File, Place Embedded to bring in the first image. I scale and position the photo right above the first rectangle. Then, I right-click on the image layer and select Create Clipping Masked. Boom. The image snaps right into that frame perfectly, without you needing to crop or erase anything. The clipping mask hides everything outside the shape, giving it a clean, professional look. I repeat this process for all 6 images, placing each one directly above its rectangle, right-clicking, and choosing Create Clipping Mask. You'll see how each image takes on the exact shape and size of its frame, giving the flyer a very polished and uniform style. This method is great for presenting multiple products or features in a compact way. You avoid random image edges or awkward sizing because the clipping mask does all the cleanup work for you. Once all 6 images are clipped into place, take a second to adjust the positioning inside each mask. You can double-click the image and move it slightly left or right, up or down, to make sure the important part of each photo is showing clearly. And just like that, we've created a mini photo gallery right inside our design, clean, organized, and super professional looking. Right below the 6 smaller images, I place a hero image. This is usually the most eye-catching photo in the design, whether it's a product shot or a model wearing the brand. Instead of putting it inside a shape, I simply position the image directly onto the canvas, making sure it sits well in the layout and balances with the rest of the elements. I scale the image proportionally, adjust the position slightly, and leave enough space around it so it feels clean and intentional. Since this is a key visual, it needs to stand out but still blend nicely with the overall composition. Now, on the bottom left corner of the design, I add a final touch, a simple, welcoming message that speaks directly to the viewer. The text reads, "Visit us today at Sunyani Odumasai." I place it neatly in the corner using a clean and stylish font that adds just the right amount of flair. It's a subtle way to share location info while giving the flyer a polished, personal feel. To wrap up the layout, I draw another rounded rectangle just below the bottom left text. This will act as a contact box where customers can quickly spot how to reach out. Inside this box, I place the WhatsApp logo on the left side, and next to it, I type the contact number, 0594125532, in bold, clean text. I make sure it's large enough to grab attention but still blends well with the overall design. The use of icons like WhatsApp not only adds a modern touch, but it also helps users instantly recognize how to contact the business, especially on mobile platforms like Instagram and WhatsApp. Now that the flyer is done, it's time to export your design and get it ready for posting or printing. I go to the top menu and click on File, Export As. From here, I choose JPEG or PNG format depending on where I'll be using it. JPEG is great for sharing online, and PNG works well if I need a transparent background. I name my file something relevant, choose 100% quality, and click Export. And just like that, your beautiful social media post is ready to go. Now here's the exciting part. If you followed along and created your version of this design, I'd love to see it. Send your finished flyer to lisgraphix17@gmail.com, and the first 5 people who submit their work will get a free one-on-one tutoring session with me. I'll personally walk you through tips, feedback, and help you level up your Photoshop skills. So don't wait, finish your design and email it now.